Waitress noticed what the guards didn't. It saved the millionaire from deadly poison. The diner was almost empty. When Maya saw him walk in, a man surrounded by men in dark suits, their eyes scanning every corner like hawks. She'd worked late shifts long enough to know when someone didn't belong in a place like this, but she smiled anyway, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear as she approached their table. He looked tired beneath the expensive watch and tailored coat. Not the kind of tired that sleep could fix, the kind that settled in the bones after too many long days. Pretending everything was fine, she poured coffee into his cup, her hands steady from years of practice, and noticed something odd. The way one of the guards watched him wasn't protective, it was calculating, cold. She'd seen that look before. In her father's eyes the night he left, the look of someone planning something they couldn't take back. "Where are you watching from tonight?" Maya had been working at Rosie's diner for 3 years, ever since her college dreams quietly folded into something more practical. The morning shift started at 5, when the world was still dark, and the coffee maker hummed its familiar song. She knew the regulars by heart: Mr. Patterson with his black coffee and dry toast, Mrs. Chen, who always left a $2 tip folded into a tiny square, the truck drivers who called her sweetheart but meant it kindly. Her feet ached by noon, but she never complained. Complaining didn't pay the rent on her studio apartment or keep the lights on. Besides, there was something honest about the work pouring coffee, remembering how people liked their eggs, offering a warm smile when someone looked like they needed one. That evening, though, felt different from the moment the black cars pulled up outside. The man in the expensive coat sat in the corner booth, and his guards spread out around him like a wall. Maya approached with her notepad, trying not to stare. Up close, she could see the lines around his eyes, the slight tremor in his hands as he reached for the menu. "Just coffee for now," he said, his voice softer than she expected. "Please." She brought the pot over, filling his cup and those of the guards. That's when she noticed it, the faintest bitter scent rising from his cup. Something that didn't belong in fresh brewed coffee. Her grandmother had taught her about herbs and plants during the summers she'd spent at her farmhouse, warned her about certain smells that meant danger. Maya's heart stuttered, but she kept her face calm. She glanced at the guard who'd prepared the cup before she arrived at the table, saw the way his jaw was set too tight, his eyes avoiding the man he was supposed to protect. "Sir," she said quietly, her voice steady, despite the fear climbing her throat. "That coffee's been sitting too long. Let me get you a fresh cup." The man looked up at her, confused, but something in her eyes made him pause. She reached for his cup, but the guard's hand shot out, gripping her wrist. "The coffee's fine," he said, his voice hard as stone. Maya met his gaze and saw the truth written there, cold, murderous, and desperate. Her pulse hammered in her ears, but she didn't let go of the cup. "I insist," Maya said, her voice trembling now but holding firm. "Health code. Can't serve coffee that's been sitting." The guard's grip tightened on her wrist, and she felt the ache spread up her arm. The other guards shifted, sensing something wrong but not understanding what. The man in the expensive coat looked between them, his eyes narrowing. "Let her go, Marcus," he said quietly. The guard Marcus released her wrist slowly, and Maya stepped back, still holding the cup. Her hands shook as she walked toward the kitchen, feeling his eyes burning into her back. She dumped the coffee into the sink, watching the dark liquid swirl down the drain, and leaned against the counter, trying to catch her breath. "Ray." The night cook looked over from the grill. "You all right, sweetheart?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. Through the serving window, she could see Marcus standing now, his hand inside his jacket. The other guards looked confused. The man in the coat sat very still, watching everything with the careful attention of someone who'd survived by noticing details. Others missed. Maya poured fresh coffee from a different pot, the one she'd made herself an hour ago. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. "Trust your nose, Maya girl. God gave us instincts for a reason." When she returned to the table, she set the new cup in front of the man and met his eyes. "This one's better," she said softly. Then, quieter still, barely a whisper, the first one smelled wrong. Like bitter almonds. His face went pale. Bitter almonds, the telltale scent of cyanide. something only some people could detect. She saw understanding dawn in his eyes, followed by something that looked like grief. He looked at Marcus, who'd gone rigid. "How long?" the man asked, his voice breaking slightly. "How long have you been planning this?" The diner went silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic. Maya stepped back, her heart breaking for this stranger who'd just learned his trust had been bought and sold. If this moment touched your heart, please give the video a thumbs up. Marcus's hand moved inside his jacket, and Maya knew with terrible certainty that the next few seconds would change everything. The man she'd served coffee to was about to face the darkest kind of betrayal, and somehow, without meaning to, she'd stepped into the middle of it. Everything happened fast and slow at the same time. Marcus pulled a gun, but before he could raise it, the other guards moved. They'd seen the truth in their employer's face, understood what Maya's warning meant. There was shouting, the crash of dishes as someone hit a table, and Maya found herself pulled behind the counter by Ray, his thick arms shielding her as the chaos unfolded. When the noise finally stopped, Marcus was on the floor, restrained by 2 guards, and the man in the expensive coat sat in the booth with his head in his hands. The gun lay on the floor, dark and ugly against the checkered tiles Maya mopped every night. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called 911. Maya's legs felt weak as she stepped out from behind the counter. The man looked up at her, and she saw tears on his face, not from fear, but from the weight of betrayal. Marcus had been with him for 7 years, had eaten at his table, had met his children. "Why?" the man asked Marcus, his voice hollow. "Why would you do this?" Marcus said nothing, his face turned away. Maya walked slowly to the booth and slid into the seat across from the man. Her hands were still shaking, but she folded them on the table, trying to steady herself. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I'm so sorry this happened." He looked at her really, looked at her hand. Something crumbled in his expression. "You saved my life. You didn't even know me, and you saved my life." "My grandmother always said to trust what felt wrong," Maya said softly. "That coffee? It just felt wrong." He reached across the table and took her hand, his grip gentle, despite his trembling. "What's your name?" "Maya, Maya," he repeated, as if committing it to memory. "Thank you. Thank you for paying attention when everyone else looked away." The police arrived then, flooding the diner with questions and flashing lights. Through it all, Maya sat quietly, answering what she could, her mind still trying to catch up with what had happened. She'd come to work expecting another ordinary night of refilling coffee and clearing tables. Instead, she'd stepped between a man and death without even thinking about it. Have you ever faced something like this? Share your story in the comments. As they led Marcus away in handcuffs, Maya caught his eye for just a moment. There was no remorse there, only cold anger that his plan had failed. She looked away, feeling suddenly exhausted down to her bones, and wondered if she'd ever feel safe in the diner again. The man Robert. She learned his name was Robert, refused to leave until the police finished with her. He sat in the booth, flanked by his remaining guards, watching as she gave her statement with quiet courage. When the detective finally closed his notebook and told her she could go home, Robert stood. "Please," he said. "Could I speak with you for a moment?" Maya nodded, too tired to do anything else. They stepped outside into the cool night air, away from the chaos and the lingering smell of fear. The neon sign of Rosie's Diner buzzed above them, casting pink and blue light across the empty parking lot. "I don't know how to thank you," Robert said, his voice rough with emotion. "You risked your life tonight. That guard, he could have hurt you." Maya wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold. "I just did what felt right. I couldn't let you drink that coffee knowing something was wrong with it. Most people would have looked away, convinced themselves it wasn't their problem." He reached into his jacket, and for a heart-stopping moment, Maya tensed. But he pulled out a business card. "I want to help you. Whatever you need, school, a better job, anything. You gave me my life back tonight. Let me give you something in return." Maya took the card, feeling the weight of expensive paper between her fingers. Part of her wanted to refuse, to insist she'd only done what anyone would do. But she looked at the card Robert Chen, CEO of Chen Industries, and thought about her studio apartment, her student loans, the dreams she'd set aside to make rent each month. I wanted to be a nurse, she heard herself say. Before everything got so expensive and complicated, I wanted to help people. Robert smiled, and it transformed his face, chasing away the shadows. Then that's what you'll do. I'll take care of the tuition. All of it. It's the least I can do. Tears pricked Maya's eyes. I don't. I can't accept that. Yes, you can. You already saved one life tonight, Maya. Think of how many more you'll save as a nurse. He squeezed her shoulder gently. Sometimes we have to let people help us. It's not weakness, it's grace. If you've been enjoying this story, subscribe for more heartwarming tales. Maya clutched the card to her chest as Robert's car drove away, its taillights disappearing into the night. Above her, the stars were visible for once, scattered across the dark sky like promises waiting to be kept. 3 months later, Maya stood in the diner for the last time, wearing street clothes instead of her uniform. The morning regulars had thrown her a small party-ish sheet cake from the grocery store. Cards signed by people who'd watched her grow from a scared 22-year-old into the young woman she'd become. Mr. Patterson gave her a hug that smelled like Old Spice and coffee. Mrs. Chen pressed a jade bracelet into her hand, whispering that it would bring her luck. The truck drivers pooled their money for a new stethoscope, even though she tried to tell them she didn't need it yet. You take care of those patients the way you took care of us, one of them said, his eyes suspiciously bright. With a good heart, Ray, the cook who'd pulled her to safety that terrible night, wiped his hands on his apron and cleared his throat. You're going to do great things, Maya. We always knew it. She hugged each of them, her heart full of gratitude and bittersweet goodbye. This place had been her home when she'd had nowhere else to go. These people had become her family when her own had scattered like autumn leaves as she walked to her car. She looked back at Rosie's diner one more time. The neon sign flickered, just like always. Through the window, she could see Ray flipping pancakes, could imagine the smell of coffee and bacon, the warmth of belonging. That night had changed everything. Robert had kept his promise. Her first semester of nursing school started next week, fully paid. But more than that, he'd reminded her that paying attention mattered, that trusting her instincts could save lives. That one small act of courage could open doors she'd thought were locked forever. She still had the coffee cup from that night, the one that had held poison. Robert had asked if she wanted it, and something told her to keep it not as a trophy, but as a reminder. A reminder that ordinary people doing ordinary work could still be heroes. That kindness and attention were their own kind of superpower. Maya started her car and pulled out of the parking lot, headed toward a future that finally felt bright. The morning sun caught her rearview mirror, turning everything gold, and she smiled. Sometimes the smallest gestures, a fresh cup of coffee, a moment of courage, a willingness to trust what feels wrong could change everything. And sometimes, the people you save end up saving you right back. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more. Thank you for spending your time with us today.